Welcome to the Land to Lots podcast, powered by Launch Development Finance Advisors. And now your host, Carter Froelich.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Land to Lots podcast. My name is Carter Froelich, and today I have the great pleasure of welcoming to the podcast Casey Roloff and Jeff Gundersen. Casey is the CEO of Seabrook Land Company, and Jeff is the CFO. So we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's the creation of new urbanist, walkable, pedestrian-friendly, connected, beautiful, communities. And Casey and Jeff are applying their artistry and their development in the Oregon and Washington State areas of the country. So Casey and Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Carter.
Yeah, thank you, Carter. We're happy to be here.
Yep. Thanks, guys. And before we get going, Casey, maybe you want to kick it off a little bit. Give a little bit of background of yourself, Seabrook Land, and how you came to be a developer of new urbanist communities. And that's my term I'm going to use. I know you have your own jargon that you may want to apply, but why don't you kick it off?
Well, kind of an unlikely journey for me. I was a bit of a flaky kid. Met my wife Laura, and then got my act together. Started a painting business. Painted my way through college, and then we just wanted to live by the ocean. That was our dream. Both of us loved the ocean, and so we didn't know what we were gonna do other than paint houses. Moved down to the Oregon coast. Started looking for houses to buy, and the old houses that we really were enamored by, that had the character and the charm, were either too expensive or needed too much work, they're too risky. And then the newer houses lacked the character. They had they had concrete foundations and better construction methods, but they lacked any, again, design quality. So we thought, what if we could design, newer houses that have the character of these houses that we love? And so we love taking, driving down old streets and old neighborhoods and taking pictures of old bungalows and craftsmen and, all the good stuff. And so, so we designed our first house. The banks wouldn't loan us money. We went to one of the guys we painted houses for. He was a doctor, and we painted his office building and a couple of the other doctors' houses, and loaned $150,000 at 14% interest. And that was in 1995. Rates are about what they are today. And built the house, sold it, and then we basically became a custom home builder. But at the same time, what was circling around in our heads was, like, we wanted our kids to grow up in a really great neighborhood, and there weren't a lot of great neighborhoods on the Oregon coast. And my wife grew up in Portland in a small neighborhood called Selwood, where she could walk to school starting in 4th and 5th grade. If her parents needed something for dinner, she could go to the grocery store and pick it up for them. So she had all this independence. She could go to the candy store, and I couldn't believe how much independence she had. And meanwhile, I grew up in Vancouver, Washington, on a cul-de-sac. No sidewalks, no alleys, no shops, no restaurants. So anything I wanted to do, my parents had to drive me there. So this stuff was just kind of spinning in our head. And so when I saw the way she lived, and then we were always kind of drawn by these older walkable neighborhoods, that's when we heard about Seaside, Florida. And it was just like, boom. That was so inspiring for us to see that we were still capable of building towns, and we'd basically just lost our way. I mean, for hundreds and thousands of years, we've been designing with this urban planning methodology that's created the best places that we want to visit, vacation, we want to live there. We never want to leave because they're so incredibly well designed and built. And so basically it just struck a nerve, and we knew that our future was going to be building neighborhoods and now towns.
And so your first project, and I forgot to mention, but Casey and his team created Bella Beach, Olivia Beach, now Seabrook, and we're working on another project together. But was Bella your first project?
Yep. So Bella was our first. So after I visited Seaside, met Larry Davis, Robert's brother, who's the founder,
Uh-huh.
and his wife Daryl Davis. They basically said, Casey, we can give you the playbook on how to build your own town. And so for the last 25 years, they've been mentoring us and like basically giving us the secret sauce of, how to build these things successfully. As you know,
Yeah.
there's some successful ones and some unsuccessful ones.
Yeah.
And so I really listened very closely, and then we also brought on one of the guys from Rosemary Beach.
Yeah.
He was the assistant director of development there. Pretty much every piece of, every street and piece of architecture went through his hands, and it was incredibly successful. And so we kind of had, this playbook from Seaside. And then we also had, this understanding of how Rosemary Beach was built. One was built bootstrapped from a
Yeah.
financial perspective,
Yeah.
or like our town. And then Rosemary was like, big capital coming in. And
Yeah.
so, we've been kind of studying both of those, case studies, so to speak, for the last 25 years. And we've obviously, again, taken that slower and steady
Yeah.
wins the race approach, with less capital, but we've learned a lot along the way, and now we're basically ready to find the right kind of capital partner that sees the kind of value we can create and build more at scale.
Great. Well, that's a perfect segue into Jeff, who is the CFO. Jeff, how did you come to meet Casey and how did you become part of the team?
So Casey and I have a mutual friend, and so we didn't know each other, but we had this mutual friend, and so when Casey was launching Seabrook, and kind of in the need for someone with my skill set, our friend kind of connected us, and
Uh-huh.
the rest is history. So I was a little over 20 years ago. I think there were three homes started when I started here, but none finished. So it's been a while.
Yeah, great. Well, and Casey, you touched on a lot of uh, topics that I would like to really drill down on. In fact, I'm going to be lucky enough to be speaking with Robert Davis in a couple of weeks, actually, oddly enough, in England. So I'm
Oh,
I'm gonna
wow.
get to finally meet him
Oh,
after
very
reading so
cool.
much about him. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that because I was a student of Seaside as well, and obviously Rosemary Beach and Watercolor and some of these
Mhm.
other communities. Uh, so jumping into the product that you build and as a little background, I grew up in Dickinson, North Dakota, one of the major cultural centers of the state with 17,000 people. But in North Dakota, all of the cities were built around a railroad hub.
Mm.
And because a train could go 100 miles, they would stop, they would build a railroad hub, and the city built around it, and they were all on a grid. Most of the houses had porches, they all had alleys, they all fronted the street, and 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 so a lot of the new urbanists, if I can use those terms, I mean, it's just we're just going back to the future. We're somewhere along the way. I think Casey, you mentioned we lost our way of building community, and all we're really doing is building community the way communities or towns used to be built. Is that a correct statement in your mind? Is
100%.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and at least in North Dakota, and this gets into the way Robert Davis built Seaside. At least my understanding is because they didn't have any money, they would build one street at a time. They would sell the lots, build the houses, and then when they needed another street, they would just take the money that they had earned and build another street. The last lot sales price became the first lots, yeah,
Yeah.
the new
Yeah.
sales price for the next street, and they just kept on going. And they just had a tremendous amount of return as a result of that planned scarcity. Is that something that you utilize, either that you stumbled upon or that you use specifically in your communities? I mean, I know I'm jumping into the finance, and I'm gonna detour here to more planning in just a minute. And then Jeff, what are your thoughts on that after Casey shares.
Sure.
Well, yeah, incremental development, again, that more slow and steady wins the race approach. Really pre-selling as much as we possibly can. And I had never heard this before, but someone said, "You guys are dream sellers." And
Yeah.
that's really what we were. We had to paint the picture in someone's head before we built it because we didn't have the capital to build
Yeah.
it and put in all the amenities and really knock people's socks off. We had to like sell the vision to them. And over the last 25 years, you get better and better at that with renderings and design, and then you have to earn the trust. If you can't earn the trust of the buyer,
Hmm.
they're not gonna buy on just the vision. So
Yeah.
yeah, just that. I wouldn't say one street at a time, but one smaller neighborhood at a time.
Okay.
Usually 30 to
30
50
to
lots.
50.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Jeff.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree with everything Casey's saying. Going back to the very beginning, we really did pre-sell everything.
Hmm.
We really did very little spec building, next to none. So we would always take a 10 to 15% non-refundable deposit right up front.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
in the early years, that really almost eliminated any speculative purchasing.
Yeah.
And that really helped buoy us through some of the tougher times, over the last 20 years, because we didn't just have a bunch of people purchasing to flip.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were buying for the right reasons right
Yeah.
up front. But yeah, with that conservative approach, like Casey said, we would develop one neighborhood at a time, kind of had a similar approach, 30 to 50 lots. We'd take the non-refundable deposits. We established really good relationship with lenders, so that kind of helped us kind of push the project through.
Hmm.
Over the years, actually Casey and I were in CSAT, I don't know, 10 years ago when we were talking about it, we were like, maybe we should have like 8 to 10 spec houses going at any one time. So people not only can dream purchase, but they can walk
Yeah.
through some homes and so we've kind of kept that philosophy going as well. We're probably
Hmm.
75 to 80% pre-sales,
Okay.
with some spec building so people can kind of walk through and see what they have. But we've found that to be a really effective mix for us,
Yeah.
from a financing standpoint.
And you have a different model, I think, than maybe most developers. First of all, you have a different vision, I think, on the community you're building vis-a-vis others. Would you just like to talk to our listeners a little bit about your corporate philosophy, your vision, what you're trying to do vis-a-vis what some of the other developers in the Pacific Northwest or anywhere in the country are doing for that matter?
Well, I think the first thing is, when I started building houses, I had some pretty good sized builder developers that gave me advice. And
Hmm.
usually their first piece of advice is whatever you do, don't live in your community. And I was kind of like,
Yeah.
what? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound very good. Because like we want to build something that we want to live in.
Yeah.
And that was what drove us. We ended up having four daughters, and so what drove us was building the kind of neighborhood we wanted our kids to grow up in.
Yeah.
And not just me, but Jeff as well. A lot of our leadership and a lot of our employees actually live in the town that we're building, and so we're all playing a part in that town. And so I think there's a lot more attention to detail when your kids have to run down the streets and the
Yeah.
sidewalks and through the parks and into town. And we're listening to our kids, like, what do you see next on Main Street, or what do you see next as an amenity, and why? So, for the last 25 years, almost 25 years, we've been kind of just observing and trying to understand how we can build the best experience for both homeowners and guests that are also visiting Seabrook.
Yeah. And I doing the research, I see the word destination community come up quite a bit in is that a term that you use? Is that something, what does that mean to you, Casey?
Well, we all always are messing around with
Yeah.
different ways to describe it, but like
Yeah.
DPZ, they describe them as resort towns.
Yeah.
Seaside, they put their, if you look on their website, their category is resort
Yeah.
towns for Seaside and Rosemary and Alice Beach. But the reality is that most beach towns or resort towns grew into places that people wanted to live full time.
Yeah.
Once you have hit critical mass and you've started to meet all the basic needs of a resident, places like Carmel, Santa Barbara,
Yeah.
Bozeman, Montana, these places are some of the most desirable places because they're super walkable
Yeah.
and they meet all of your basic needs within a short distance. So we're kind of morphing from a place that people were only thinking about vacation to a place that people are thinking like, wow, I want to live there.
Yeah.
That's really the ultimate goal. But I look at Seaside and what's happened on 30A and what we're building here at Seabrook is these are really prototypes
Yeah.
proving that we know how to build towns and we can build places that are enduring, for one generation to the next, and we can live a very walkable lifestyle. So the hope, of course, is that, and now we're finally hearing it from consumer research, through home builders and home builders association and National Association of Realtors and others that, oh, people want walkability. They want to walk to a coffee shop. They want to meet their friend in a park, and they want to live a more walkable lifestyle. I think one of those surveys was that 72% would pay more to live in a walkable neighborhood.
Yeah.
Now, walkability is kind of like green building, where it can be, you know, walkable washed or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Developers are using all these buzzwords. Oh, it's walkable. We have sidewalks, we have trails, but you have to have a place to walk to.
Yeah.
You're not going to be on the sidewalk running into your neighbor unless there's actual basic needs to walk to within your community. And that's the next big step for a lot of these
Yeah.
master plan developments.
And 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 I agree. So I live half the year in Corona Del Mar, and I started my career in Orange County and living on Balboa Island, but it was all built in the 20s and 30s, alley loaded,
Mhm.
a walkable little downtown area. And granted, we were on an island, but the big thing to do was to walk around the island, not necessarily to look at the boats and what was going on around you, although that was nice, but the thing that people did is they were looking in other people's houses
Mhm. Mhm.
because they go, wow, they got a new couch. That looks really nice. Because nothing is more interesting to people than people. And
Mhm.
and so to have that connectivity and to what you just said, people are willing to pay multiples to have that kind of environment because the prices in Corona Del Mar are multiples of what they are in Newport Beach proper. And you're crunched together, you're alley loaded, but you're walkable. You can go to the drugstore. You don't have to get in your car. You can go to the local coffee place, and people are willing to pay multiples for that. And to that end, when you're looking at kicking off another project, what are I would assume that the amenities, you'll have some parks and stuff, but is the downtown the amenity? How do you look at phasing and creating that vision that that you alluded to earlier? You're selling the dream, and then Jeff, the follow-up question to you is how does that look on the pro forma? So Casey, take it away with that question, and let's just kind of dig into that.
Well, the town is the amenity.
Yep.
And so I think instead of thinking clubhouse, I mean, you look
Yep.
at some of these clubhouses that are being built, and I look at that as like, wow, that's your main street right there. You could build a little town center with what you've got invested in
Yeah.
that clubhouse, and then build off of that.
Hmm.
So, instead of a golf course or instead of a clubhouse, we were thinking that the town center would be our amenity. But the real genius of Seaside and Rosemary, but definitely more Seaside, was the incubation of retail.
Yeah.
That are you can start with farmers markets and art walks and music festivals and tents and
Mhm.
food trucks and all, and all those kind of things. And that creates part of the charm. And
Mhm.
our owners loved getting to know these merchants that were starting very small with, it could be a taco truck or a pizza truck, and to watch them evolve into like really successful businesses
Mhm.
and be able to say, I remember when you were just in a taco truck. Like, and so, and I think a lot of developers are thinking that you have to skip ahead to building the brick and
Yep.
mortar retail when you don't need
Yep.
to do that. There's a way to create that um, village center or town center with pop-up.
Yeah.
And then but the property is there to build a complete town center when you're
Yeah.
ready for it. And no one, you don't know exactly. You need certain amount of rooftops, certain amount of people.
Mhm.
Um, and you need the density to support it. It's not going to work with 8,000 or 10,000 square foot lots. You're going to kill your main street. You've
Yeah.
got to have that density and that missing middle housing to actually support the main street and make sure it's successful. But
Yeah.
it starts very small, very incrementally, and that's the genius behind Seaside. And we've taken those lessons and learned from the pitfalls of other developers that over retailed too
Yeah.
early, and that's usually what takes them down when they're not doing it incrementally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean our our first few retail businesses, were double wide trailers with kind of a dolled up storefront. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
people were checking in to their homes in Seabrook for 15 years, 12, 15 years in a double wide trailer with a
They were
nice.
used double wides,
Yeah.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
I mean,
Not even
even
new.
Well, you
worse.
got to get that charm. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't build them like they used to.
The patina of the used double wide.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, our approach has always been so like so we've had people in these types of businesses, and as their businesses grow in the demand, we've always tried to build the retail out to where the demand was much, you know, we didn't want to like over retail, like and so like we wanted to make sure the demand was super, super heavy. We structure our deals with a base rent plus a percentage rent against like
Mhm.
a natural break point. So as these businesses do really well, then we do better. I
Yeah.
would say that, like kind of our long-term structure from a retail standpoint is we try to, at the very least break even from a cash flow standpoint,
Yeah.
while we're building long-term value in the main street. And so, it's been really effective for us.
Yeah.
And our restaurants are doing. We have one restaurant that's doing, almost $2,000 a square foot. Most
Wow.
most of the F&B places are doing over 1,000.
Yeah.
The soft goods are doing 600 to 800. I mean, so that they're very successful businesses. And so the demand has always kind of outpaced as we've built the new places along, and that's kind of going to continue to be our strategy.
Yeah. So when you're ready to launch, no pun intended, a new community, and assuming that you may not have a lot of residents around, and you're bringing people to the beach. I'm just going to say that for right now. You're developing the social engineering, the soft marketing, the soft infrastructure initially to bring in food trucks, activities, maybe on a town green, and then as the housing and the residents come, then you're adding more perhaps physical structures, and housing them in the physical structure, other than maybe a double wide or whatever else you have.
Yeah,
Is
I mean, it was
kind of
really
how
like
everything's coming together. Yeah.
it was like a three-way, a three thing. It was like food trucks into double wides into permanent,
Yeah. Yeah.
buildings.
Yeah.
So like it was definitely incremental in that way.
And you guys have a different business plan that I've seen, meaning you are in, not only do you live in the communities, but you put your money where your mouth is and you're there for the long term. My words, not yours necessarily. But could you talk about all the different operations you have going, creating streams of income for your business within, let's just talk about Seabrook, because I think you have a number of different ways that you're bringing revenue to your project.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, a little of it was up front was just because we were kind of super pioneering. I mean, there
Hmm.
wasn't much out here
Yeah.
when we started, and so it's turned into an kind of an asset for us. But it was something that we kind of had to do up front.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're a land developer. We sell lots. If people want to come in and buy a lot and hire a custom builder to come in with a custom architect, we'll do that. We're a home builder. We probably build 95 to 97% of all the homes that are out here. We're in the hospitality business. We manage the hospitality company. We have probably 650 to 700 homes built. I'd say about 55% of them are in our rental program.
Yeah.
And so we manage that for them. We have a real estate brokerage business. So, when people want to list their homes after they've been out here for 5, 10 years for whatever reason, like we'll manage that side of it for them as well. Yeah, I mean, we're touching a lot of it.
Yeah, no,
Pretty much all of it.
yeah, it's a great model, and that was something that I was really, oh, this is interesting. They've got their fingers into everything, but a lot of it is because you have to,
It was important for us to be in the hospitality
yeah,
business because if half of our homes are in it, that means
yeah,
half of them aren't. And
yep,
so, like, you want that experience for everyone to be great. And we didn't want, you know, 15 different operators out here not
yeah.
working like in a cohesive way that was really, supportive of the experience of the entire community, whether you were in the rental program or not.
Exactly. And Casey, one of the things that I hear about new urbanism, and here again, my term, is that it ends up becoming very expensive housing, for those that can afford it. How have you addressed that at Seabrook and some of your other communities to provide what I commonly hear referred to as the missing middle, and typologies for housing and for people that maybe, I know you guys are working in the community, a little different demographic than one would initially think about.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing was different about us when we discovered Seaside is we were home builders already.
Yeah,
So we were thinking about it from a home builder perspective, instead of just, the developer's perspective. And Robert and Daryl built some things obviously in Seaside because they had to.
yeah,
But most developers have tried to stay out of the home building side,
yeah,
and we're just home builders. I mean, that's what we know how to do. So we tried to make it a little easier and more efficient than what you see in, Rosemary or
yeah,
Alice or Seaside, those kind of places. But I think that, over this last 25 years, we've seen what the pitfalls are of new urbanist communities or walkable neighborhoods, um, and now what we want to do is really, eliminate those pitfalls and make it so that a walkable neighborhood can be really successful out of the gate. But I think that most developers, that they fall in love with this idea of building a town or a walkable neighborhood, and they get over excited about the architecture, and they feel as though every building needs to be published.
yeah,
And again, there's Seaside has an incredible amount of
yeah,
architecture that's been published, and Rosemary, and we have as well here. But these are kind of like the Porsches and the Ferraris of
yeah,
walkable neighborhoods. This is not what's realistic for the masses.
yeah,
And so we're looking at it more from like a company town perspective, kind of like the communities that you were talking about in North Dakota.
yeah.
You can look at a lot of company towns. They were very efficient. They were
Hmm.
super walkable. They met all the basic needs of the residences or of the residents within short walking distance. So we need to be thinking more like company towns
Yeah,
than we are thinking these really extravagant, incredible architectural places, like what's on 30A.
yeah.
And that's getting your costs down, and still building that value, that inherent value of a walkable neighborhood, but
Hmm.
not having to stick your neck out too far.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes, again, I love architects. I love great
Yeah.
architecture.
Yeah.
But the reality is that that's not what we need right now. I mean, we need on a simplified perspective. And there are some amazing architects out there that know how to, they're more developer architects
Yeah.
that know how to create that. And so you can scale it and have efficient buildings and cost effective houses. And that's really what we need. But to the missing middle side, um, that's one thing you would see here at Seabrook that you don't see as much in on the Panhandle is
Hmm.
that we have a lot of missing middle, a lot of cottage courts, cabin courts, townhouses, live works. I mean, they have live works as well, but
Yeah.
there's just a lot higher density um, and missing middle housing that's surrounding our town and our
Yeah.
town center. We're also at a larger scale. We're 730 acres.
Yeah.
So three complete villages in the end. It's almost like putting Seaside, Rosemary, and Alice Beach all together, but they're all interconnected.
Yeah. And when you're looking at opening a new neighborhood, are you looking at providing all of those typologies to hit all the different demographics and market segments, or are you typically building, this is going to be a cottage neighborhood, period, end of story. This is townhomes over here. Are they all integrated? Are the different typologies facing each other on a street? How are you
I,
how are you trying to hit all the different market segments when you're opening new neighborhoods?
well, one of the things we say all the time is variety is the spice of life. So
Yep.
when we're building a neighborhood, we want to hit every category.
Yep.
And when you actually sprinkle in the missing middle housing, um, that's what really creates beautiful neighborhoods.
Yeah.
If a lot of developers are afraid to do that, well, how can I sell this expensive lot with the townhouse next
Yeah.
door, or with the cottage court next door? But when you think about the towns you're talking about, like in Southern California, that are some of the highest valued properties, and the best places around the country and around the world, it's finessed
Yeah.
into the neighborhood. So you have the mansions
Yep.
and the larger houses and the medium-sized houses, but you also have that really small
Yeah.
square footage, more efficient cottage or cabin style housing. And then of course you have ADUs
Yep.
above garages, and or dadus and ADUs.
Yeah.
So we kind of have it all here.
Yeah.
But then the duplexes, the fourplexes, the sixplexes, the 12plexes,
Mhm.
um, those need to be intermixed into each and every neighborhood.
Yeah. And then Jeff, are you as Casey, and here again, I'm making assumptions, but Casey's going, okay, we got another neighborhood. Here's how I'm envisioning it, envisioning the product mix, the unit mix. Are you taking that and finessing it in Excel and saying, well, maybe we got to add a little
Oh
bit more to
yes.
this or take
There's
away some of
there's
that.
definitely
How
some
do you
push and
guys work
pull.
together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely some push and pull for
Yeah.
sure, as we go along. And, we always find a happy medium between like what makes the most sense financially versus what makes the most sense from a
Yeah.
neighborhood construction standpoint. And frankly, it kind of like it all kind of blends in the
Yeah.
end. But yeah, I mean, it does make, I think from a financing standpoint too, it does make sense to have some lower price point products, some medium price point
Yeah.
products, and some higher price point product. And so, yeah, we battle it out sometimes, but it always ends up in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, it looks like you two get along swimmingly, so that's great. But before we uh, got on the call, we were talking about some planning issues, and a lot of times at least there can be a lot of misconceptions about new urbanism, form-based code, traditional neighborhood development. Yeah, you talk to a city and they go, how the hell does this meet within our criteria of our planning and zoning and entitlements that we currently have on the books? Could you talk a little bit about your experiences as it relates to talking with the jurisdictions, be it Oregon or Washington, on your vision and how that fits in with their vision and existing planning criteria that they have on their books or not?
I think most of the planners um, have always been kind of excited about bringing on a more innovative
Yeah.
design. And again, there's nothing really innovative about it. It's just that we stopped doing it,
Yeah.
right? We'd love to take credit for all these ideas, but we're not. And usually when we connect it to the historic parts of whatever community or
Yeah.
jurisdiction we're in, usually they're like, "Oh yeah, we love those streets and we love that part of the neighborhood." And so that, like, well, that's exactly what we're trying to build.
Yeah.
And so if when you can connect it with something that they are already familiar with, and a place that they love that's close by, that usually gets them really engaged. But I don't want to make it sound like it's easy,
Yeah.
because you still have to go through the civil engineers and the fire department, and
Mhm.
sometimes you get someone that is really like open to looking at these ideas, and again relating them to like historic places, and say, oh well, those neighborhoods seem to be fine, and the narrower streets and the alleyways,
Yeah.
and but we have to demonstrate, we have to educate usually them on these design principles, because they haven't really applied them
Yeah.
in their jurisdiction. And so we want to make them feel really comfortable. So sometimes it's bringing a video out and showing a fire truck go around our one of our squares,
Yeah.
or down an alley, or down a narrow street, and how we can actually fight a fire from the street side and the alley side.
Yeah.
Things like that really help in the process.
Yeah.
The other big thing we see right now that's a hot button for these jurisdictions is nightly rentals. A lot of these towns and they're going away from allowing nightly rentals. And so, working with them to kind of show how we're different.
Yeah.
We have on-site management, 24/7 safety, like, so it's just a completely different experience
Yeah.
for people within our communities versus like onesie twosie Airbnbs or Verbos. And so that's also something that we need to educate them on as
Yeah.
well.
And has that been a successful, have you had any issues where the city said, we don't care, you're going to do it our way, period, end of story? Okay. No,
Not so
because
far.
everything's, yeah. Okay. Good
Yeah,
to,
if you called the jurisdictions that we've worked in, like their planning departments or their local police, they would probably tell you they've gotten zero,
yeah.
complaints. And that's because we build the infrastructure on site.
Yeah.
The traditional vacation rental management company would be houses are spread out over like a 10-mile radius,
Yeah.
Or
and they can't
more.
really manage
Yeah.
at the same level when you're on a smaller footprint. So yes, and we actually saw vacation rentals. The reason we got into the business is that we were afraid that it could kind of destroy the neighborhood
Yeah.
harmony.
Yeah.
And so we got into it to make sure that we could create that harmony between
Yeah.
owners and guests, by putting the right infrastructure in and keep the community strong. And that's what we have here, is that our homeowners that live here full time, like, we welcome the guests. Like, we're
Yeah.
excited to see the guests come on the
Yeah.
weekend, and they support our shops and our restaurants. And then they go home and we got the place back to ourselves.
Yeah.
So like you mentioned, Balboa Island. I mean, most of these really desirable places, Coronado and
Yeah.
La Jolla and places like that. These are iconic places people want to vacation,
Yeah.
but the lucky ones get to live there,
Yeah.
right? And but you need that extra population on the weekends and the busy times to support those local businesses. Now, so we would build our retail district differently if we didn't have vacation rentals, which, so when we're looking at
Yeah.
new communities, it's a much different approach to how we would build retail. We wouldn't build as much retail. We
Right.
would again really focus on the basic needs rather than like the entertainment side of the retail,
Yeah.
um, which we have here in our town.
But well, the thing that was really interesting too about Celebration, when I was walking through that, a lot of they had multifamily units, but the ground level was initially apartments, but then they were to be turned into retail at some point once there was enough critical mass. So to build in that adaptability of use so it can transform over time, which I thought was really interesting. What's been your biggest learning experience as it relates to retail, both from an aesthetic, social, and financial perspectives?
I think early on we weren't picky enough with some of the merchants.
Hmm.
And so, again, that's why they call it the incubation process, because
Yeah,
some will succeed, some will fail. But I mean, we were kind of quick to jump at someone like, oh, I want to start this or start that.
yeah,
And then we're like, oh no, what do we do? You
yeah,
know? But I mean, the majority of our businesses have done very, very well here. But
yeah,
some of them we've had to say, look, if you can't step up your game,
yeah,
we're not going to be able to extend our lease with you
yeah,
going forward. So we control the retail district and we curate it. And that's one of the things that we've learned from Seaside and
yeah,
Robert and Daryl and Larry is that we want to really have an approach to the retail district where the businesses are complementary rather than like competing directly head to head,
yeah,
with selling the same items and things like that. So we want you to want to walk in every shop and go to every restaurant and have a lot of diversity versus you walk down a main street, you know, name your main street,
yeah,
you might have a lot of competing businesses, like five pizza shops, five
yeah,
places that have bars, and what we would rather have are more variety and food and beverage than like all focused on one item.
yeah. Uh, when you came upon the land on which Seabrook is now located, and how did you envision and come up with your master plan, or did you, for instance? And the only reason I bring that up is, oddly enough, I was called up by these billionaires that own 247 acres on Grand Cayman, and they wanted to do a new urbanist community. So went down there, and these guys had given up their citizenship, so they were living on island. And they said, "How would you develop this thing?" And so we did a market driven land use plan, and then we gave it to Andreas Dwani, Calthorpe, uh, Polazoides, and more Rubel Udell, and said, "Can you?" Had a design competition,
Mm.
and before we decided who to go with. But do you do that type of market research to inform your land use plan, or is it more, I'm going to build a town center kind of here, and or does it evolve over time? Is it more organic? How do you approach your land use plan?
Well, I think different than a billionaire's approach.
Yeah,
Like we're in the weeds, so we're
yeah,
doing our own market research
yeah,
and understanding every little detail and every comp and what's selling, what's not. But if you did a market study here when we started, like you would never have done the project.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah,
And and what I usually, would tell banks is that, they'd say, well, nothing's selling around here, or there's, when we started our first neighborhood, the average days on the market was 270 days on the market. Like, why would you bring in a new neighborhood of
yeah,
60 lots when nothing is selling? There's a glut of inventory and a bunch of bankrupt developers. And we'd say, well, the reason is nothing is selling because nothing's being designed well enough. And we're
yeah,
going to design something that people are going to fall in love with and they're going to buy it. And that's exactly what happened. But I think, we've used a town planner, Lawrence Kamar, who worked for Andreas and Elizabeth
hmm,
Blatter-Zyberk at DPZ, and he was a student of theirs at University of Miami,
yeah,
and all that. So he's out of Portland. He's been a great partner for us in designing our neighborhoods, from our first neighborhood to now Seabrook, and then of course our new community, West Bay, that we're working on up
yeah,
in Swim. Uh, but we usually will bring other planners
yeah,
in to collaborate in the planning process, because we want different ideas, different thought processes. People travel different places,
yeah,
and
yeah.
um,
Does it
So
become a form-based code then? Or what are the planning documents that you utilize for build out of the community?
yeah, we leaned again on so many of the consultants that worked
Okay.
on
Yeah.
the places on 30A. People like Doris Goldstein, who wrote the legal documents. She
Okay.
basically sold a package of like Newtown
Yeah.
documents, Newtown law. Um, and so I think the most important thing was that you can't get designers in the room that have been developing suburban neighborhoods for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And that might pain someone to hear that, but it's really hard to convert someone's thinking from a suburban design process to an
Hmm.
urban design process.
Yeah.
It's like building a combustion engine and an electric engine. I mean, they're just it's a different
Yeah.
philosophy. So what you did there with, bringing all those guys on, I mean, those are all some of the best, land planners in the world, quite honestly.
Yeah. Now it was really amazing, just to be able to see how they work and the different thought processes, et cetera. And our thought is there was no there in Cayman. And so what we were able to do is build the commercial core first, and then the residential is secondary. So it was kind of a different approach, in how it was addressed.
So you're talking about the Dart family, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
actually going down to Evermore to meet with Chris Kelsey. He's been out here and we've gotten to know each other.
Tell
Who
my,
runs?
yeah. So
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
great people, and I'm just very blessed to be able to work with them on Camana Bay. It was the name of.
yeah. I can't wait to see what they've done down there.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing that was cool is we were able to do the turning basin first. Drain. It was just a big mangrove swamp, so we're able to do that first, and then do the commercial core and the biggest amenity, movie theater in Cayman.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
How big of a theater?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many screens it was, but and it was the first digital projectors that were utilized, in the Caribbean.
Hmm.
So, I
Hmm.
meit because it would take forever to get to get the film
Yeah.
there, and this is a way you could just beam me in, Scotty,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. So, I look forward to hearing your comments on it and your
Yeah.
experience.
Great.
The so the next big issue we get into, at least in my experience, is financing. And how are you financing your projects? Are the banks understanding it? When you're buying the land, are you taking it down all day one? Are you writing that check? Because when you're having to expend huge amounts of money up front, that makes it hard to hit certain IRRs, or are you more multiple driven? So there's a lot of questions there. Let's first of all talk about financing, and then let's talk about how you might structure land purchases, creative ideas for that, or if you just write the check. What are your thoughts and comments on that?
Well, it's been an evolution, quite honestly.
Mhm.
Early on, it was more writing a check.
Mhm.
The first, chunk initially was Casey and some investors we had early on.
Mhm.
As we've progressed through the project, it's been a lot easier to work with lenders. We've had one main lender for like the last 12, 15 years that has been great. And so, they'll get an appraisal done. We can pretty much finance 100% of our underground, utility infrastructure work.
Mhm.
And then we'll just have a takedown schedule on the lots. And so we're financing
Yeah.
100% of the construction costs. So it's
Yeah.
really at this point pretty little cash outlay
Yeah.
as we're developing underground, putting in the lots into building the homes, and then we're just cashing it out at the end. So
Yeah.
it's been a pretty effective process for us, and that's kind of how we determine we're going to move into the next phase when we get that development loan paid down. We're already designing and ready to go into that next phase, and so it's just kind of this incremental process for us. And that's how we also haven't really gotten out too far ahead of ourselves as well, as we're just kind of paying down one phase at a time, moving into vertical construction. It's all
Yeah.
100% financed for the most
Yeah.
part. We build commercial. There's going to be some equity requirements there, but not a ton. So last 10 years have gotten a lot easier from a financing standpoint. The early years were a lot more
Yeah.
cash involved.
Okay. Casey, any comments or anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, again, pre-sales have really
Yeah.
driven the financing. Bella Beach, I got the guys that loaned me the money at 14%. I got them to invest.
Yeah.
And they put 350,000. I think Laura and I scraped up like 70,000. Got
Yeah.
a $1.4 million loan, but we paid it off in 4 months
Yeah.
with pre-sales.
Yeah.
And that's when people were kind of shocked that we could, turn the money around that quickly. And so then when we bought Seabrook, first of all, we bought it at the right time.
Yeah.
It was timing is everything. And we paid all cash for the
Mhm.
land.
Mhm.
And then we had over 300 reservations before we broke
Wow.
ground.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
so again, it's that dream selling, getting people really excited and
Mm.
pumped up about what we're doing, and they find out really quickly that we're not smoke and mirrors. Like we're
Yeah.
really going to do the things that we say we're going to do,
Yeah.
and that builds trust and confidence, and so people have just been riding that wave with us now
Yeah.
for a long time.
And Casey, when you say you had 300 reservations for Seabrook, when you purchased the land, is that okay, guys? You can pick lot one, but you need to build on it, are you requiring to use you as the builder?
So
Do
this
you
was
have a set of plans? Yeah.
2004. We had lots, basically like our more custom lots that we
Yeah.
encourage them to hire their own architect.
Okay.
We would design all the mid-block houses. This was kind of our approach to
Ah.
keeping our streets diverse. So when you looked
Yeah.
up a street, you'd see different architecture, but the mid-block
Yeah.
houses were really simple, or I should say simpler builder designs
Yeah.
that we do kind of in-house. A lot of them are in-house.
Yeah.
Um, and so people would, I mean, like, it was so wild. 2004, I mean, they were literally standing in line, and it was like whatever we had. If we'd come to you and say, this is the only house that you can buy right now, and if you don't want it, there's like 100 people
Yeah.
behind waiting
Yeah.
for this. So they weren't really choosing in the beginning. It
Yeah.
was very limited. Now, if you came in at the beginning of a new little section, then you might have 8 houses to choose from. But
Yeah.
if you were at the end of that little section, it was like one or two.
Do you see people that may have bought a smaller house because it was the only one available, or a bigger house and then going down or up, but staying in the community and switching houses?
Absolutely. A lot
Yeah.
of people, and I always encourage people to start small,
Yeah.
rather than, think that they need the house that everybody's going to show up for Thanksgiving. Because the beauty of our community is you can actually rent another house when everybody shows up.
Yeah. Oh,
You don't
yeah.
need you
That's a
don't need to
great
have a
idea.
big empty house most of the
Yeah.
year, which is what a lot of people
Yeah.
do with vacation homes. So yeah, getting people to start kind of small is
Yeah.
always been a good approach.
It happens a lot. The other thing that happens a lot is people buying multiple homes. I
Yeah.
mean, people just get so excited they come back and they want another one. And that happens a lot as
They'll
well.
Yeah, they'll rent out their smaller one, and then they'll kind of upgrade and then decide if they want to rent that. It's everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've seen people kind of stair step, and then the most rewarding thing is actually seeing some of these kids that grew up coming out here. Now they're buying
Yeah.
houses and
Yeah.
getting married here and all those kinds of things.
Well, that's a testament to what you're creating. Yeah. In terms of community and interaction and, yeah, and everything else. It as it relates to people getting together, I mean, obviously the urban design, the walkability, the downtown are all things that bring people together. What is some of the other soft programming that you utilize? And then most importantly, what is the most surprising programming that you've done that surprised you the most? Yeah, just based on how much everybody enjoyed it or enjoys it.
The pickleball courts.
The pickleball courts. Yeah.
I don't know. That's the first thing that jumped in my head, man.
Yeah,
They
I mean,
are.
the pickleball thing really took off. We have
Yeah.
5 courts,
Yeah.
designing 4 indoor courts now and 4 more outdoor courts. Yeah, it's a real community builder.
Yeah.
There's no question. And it's one of the least expensive amenities a developer can build. So it's kind of a win-win, um, because it is so enjoyable and popular. Um, that's a really good question. I mean, our homeowners have taken on their own kind of activity.
Yeah.
They create their own activities as a group, and they volunteer their time and uh, and resources, and we put some money into those as well. But it's really great when they can lead some of those community events and
Yeah.
like give them the pieces to take the lead,
Yeah.
and rather than us saying this is what you're going to want to do, we let them kind of
Yeah.
collaborate, and build some of those events and activities.
And I may be mixing myself up a bit, but I think with Andreas and some of his communities that he may have worked at, they had like a town governance, if that makes sense. It's really not a municipal governance, but it's people coming together to talk issues of the community. Do you have anything like that at Seabrook, or is there? Yeah,
We
yeah,
do. Yeah. So we have an advisory board. So
yeah,
it's still the community is going to be developer controlled till
yeah,
it's 95% built out.
yeah,
But we have a 7-person advisory board. They're all on 2 or 3 year terms. It's pretty formal. Meet, every other month. They drive the process. We're involved
yeah,
as, just kind of listening in, but it's a very engaged. They're very much interested in the overall, health of the community.
right,
They do a really good job. As people roll off, they try to fill spots, maybe
yeah,
someone that's got a legal background or someone with a
yeah,
finance background or and so they really work hard at trying to, it's the group that ultimately will become the first HOA board when
yeah.
we get to that
So
point
it's
in the
more of a
process.
HOA. It's not more than that, but it's okay.
It serves like an HOA board, but it's an advisory board at this point
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
still developer controlled.
Got it. Got it. Hey guys, what? Yeah, I've taken an hour of your time. I really, really appreciate it. Before we sign off, if I were to ask you three of your biggest learning experiences, and we can combine them, so there's just a total of three, or we can have six if you want. What would you say those are? Yeah, if you're gonna anybody wants to follow in your footsteps, what advice would you give
For me, because we get that question a lot,
them?
for me, it would be building storage like day
Ah,
one.
yeah,
So we can actually, when you've got all the construction, having like a paint booth and things
yeah,
like that for your construction team, and being able to store all your equipment inside, all those kinds of things would have
yeah.
been made our life a lot easier to have the capital to do that up front.
Hmm.
Um, the second thing that I would do is I would have built a little bed and breakfast, which this probably is a
Uh-huh.
surprise, but you can actually create a lot of the energy that you want to build in the community. You can have your sales office in that little bed and breakfast. You can have it anywhere from 3 rooms to 10 rooms, and it can be the place where you get your coffee in the morning.
Yeah,
So it's almost like a little mini village
yeah,
almost, and you
yeah.
can build off of
Great
that
idea.
onto your main street.
Yeah,
And like an example of like putting in a gym, like if you're going to build that kind of amenity, like put it on your main street up front so you could
yeah,
start to see those brick and mortar spaces going in, because you could don't build it in a more suburban way, like put it actually right in the town center because that's where people are going to connect. But I think a small bed and breakfast storage, and then the last one is assisted living.
yeah,
I wish we would have been further ahead with assisted living because we really want this to be a multi-generational
yeah.
community. And we've had both of our moms, my wife's mom and my mom,
Hmm.
unfortunately have to go to assisted living a lot more quickly than we expected.
Yeah.
And we wished we would have had a small facility here that they could have moved right into. We have a lot of homeowners that they don't want to leave this place.
Yeah.
And so to have a really great place, and we're looking at ourselves,
Yeah.
Someday we don't want to leave either.
Yeah.
And, we would want to make sure, so we joke about that a lot. We were each going to have our own wing, but, yeah, I think those are some of the things. I mean, a real town would be able to allow you to age gracefully, all the way through your life. And we want to make sure that people can do that here.
Great.
I agree with all those. I think the one thing that jumped into my head was thinking strategically about how within the community you're going to choose to develop. Whether you have a rear, construction entrance, or, you work your way from the back to the front. But like we had a number, it probably took us like 18 years to get a second entrance in so we could have all that construction traffic moving out to the back rather than driving through town. Like that was kind of a real inconvenience, I would say. So just being really strategic around how are you going to do this and how are you going to manage that flow? I mean,
that's a great one.
Those are things you don't think about initially, but they're so important.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you very much for taking the time. And as part of our podcast, I'll put links to your websites. I'll provide your contact information if you're okay with that. And if any of our listeners care to reach out to Casey and Jeff, I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
LinkedIn, great.
I'm all over LinkedIn. So,
so gentlemen, thank you very much. And if you're enjoying the podcast, really encourage you to subscribe to Land of Lots podcast and look forward to speaking with you all again. Thank you very much.
You have been listening to the Land to Lots podcast with Carter Froelich. Follow us wherever you find your podcast to never miss a new episode.